Hello and welcome to the 6th video in our Plywood mangrove aquarium build. In today's video we'll cover how we made the removable surround for the aquarium. We wanted to make the entire thing as easy to access as possible so that when we were maintaining it, it would be really easy, but we still wanted to have a rock-like effect over the entire exterior of the aquarium. We decided that an easily removable surround piece would be the best way to achieve this, so we planned out a 3-wheel piece on caster wheels that could be easily pulled away from the tank whenever we needed to access the inner workings. To start with, we picked out some pieces of MDF to make the main body of the surround and then measured and cut each piece to size. This included cutting out the main viewing hole for the aquarium, which we had to make sure was measured and marked precisely so that we didn't have any unwanted overlap of the tank itself. To cut out the hole for the viewing window, a drill with a spade bit was used to make a hole in each of the 4 corners that we could fit our jigsaw blade into. We then cut from one corner to the next along the lines that have been marked using the jigsaw, making sure not to stray outside the lines. To finish the viewing window, we cut out each of the corners with the jigsaw after the main piece had been removed to make sure the window was square. After the MDF sheets were all cut to shape, it was time to move on to cutting the 3x2 beams that would make up the supporting framework of the surround. We worked out all of the different lengths of beams that we would need beforehand and then figured out the most efficient way of getting the lengths that we needed of the smallest amount of full beams. Once all of the beams had been marked, they were all cut into the correct lengths using a circular saw. At the same time, we cut out some handholds to help with moving the surround once it was all put together. and then smoothed them out using the belt sander. They were then attached to the horizontal crossbeam sections of the surround using some seriously strong adhesive in marked positions. Once the adhesive had dried, the pieces for each side were then assembled into a mock-up of the final frame assembly, and then were screwed together so that we had 3 separate sides of the surround ready to be put together. Before the MDF sheets were screwed into the 3x2 frame, doors were marked onto each of the sides to allow access to the sump that will sit underneath the aquarium without having to pull the surround away. The corners of each of the doors were drilled out to allow the blade of the jigsaw to fit inside. The jigsaw was then used to cut out the doors one by one to finish off the side pieces. Once we'd finished cutting out all the doors, handles were cut out of plywood that were attached to the doors so they could be opened from the outside. We then moved on to mounting the MDF onto the frame pieces. The MDF sides were carefully aligned against each of the frames and then clamped and screwed into place before being propped up against the main body of the aquarium to make sure that everything was aligned properly. The sides were then clamped onto the front of the surround tightly so that everything sat square, and then were all screwed together to make the surround into one solid piece. Once the surround was fully assembled, pieces of styrofoam were stuck to the wooden surround using silicone and other adhesives to block out where the stone effect would eventually be carved into. A hot wire cutter was used to cut out the holes in the door pieces to allow access to the handles that were underneath. Once all the foam had been attached and stuck on and the adhesives had dried, expanding foam was then used to fill all of the gaps and joints between the foam pieces and left to expand and set. The excess expanding foam was then cut away using a craft knife so that only foam between the existing pieces was left. A heat gun was used to melt away the thick chunks of foam and leave behind the rocky effect that we were after. If you're going to use a heat gun on styrofoam, then make sure to do it in a well ventilated place and wear a respirator at all times, as you really don't want to be breathing in the fumes that it will give off. Pass the heat gun over the foam in long, smooth motions to get the depth that you want, and try to create a variety of random shapes and gullies in the foam to create a final rocky look. The heat gun will work really well on the standard styrofoam pieces, however it's less effective on the expanding foam. It will just burn instead of melting away. You will need to use a craft knife or similar to get rid of any leftover excess expanding foam that's left behind after burning in the stone pattern. We also used a multi-tool with a rounded cutting edge on the end to go over some of the sections that needed more refinement. And with that, the building work for the surround was finished. Make sure you come back and watch the next video to see how we finish off the surround with concrete, resin and paints. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like and a comment below. And if you want to see more projects like this one, then make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. Thank you, and see you in the next video.